All right, good morning. Here we are continuing on with our ecology and moving on from symbiosis, where we talked about symbiosis and other individual relationships. And one of the more important ones that we're going to focus on today is reproductive strategies with that mating relationship. And so, uh, going and kind of reading through this. So, as we previously discussed in our symbiosis activity, organisms will behave differently, but all of them have the same goal in mind: survival. Reproduction is one of the most essential characteristics for any organism that wants to survive and pass on their genetic material. Over time, in response to environmental pressures and stability, there are two primary reproductive strategies that we see, and they are called K and R. And K is really, and I'll kind of show it here with this graph, is referencing the carrying capacity. And so the characteristics of the K reproductive strategy is going to be related to carrying capacity, where the R reproductive strategy is really about exponential growth. And so the names are a little bit weird, but K and R are two different strategies. And today we're going to learn the differences and kind of identify the pros and cons of the two through this article. And so I found this article, and here are the directions. Read the article below from Montana State University that discusses the two strategies and answer the questions as you go. Be sure to ask for help if you have any questions or need further explanation. So I'll do my best to give an overview of this, but I really, I don't want to just go through and talk about everything. So I do want you to process the reading and do your best to process the information on your own. And then if you're reading this and you're lost or confused, feel free to please email me, check in at class, ask questions, and we will go from there. We'll see how we do. So looking at the two strategies and looking at this reading, another thing I want to say: this reading, this article, was not specifically about teaching K and R reproductive strategies. So you're going to see that the discussion is about biofilm and a little bit of microbiology, where they're looking at bacteria and so forth. So they will be talking about that within this, but this portion really does identify the K and R strategies and the key components of them and the key characteristics. So that's why I chose this reading. And it's real science, right? So we're not just reading from a little textbook about this is what it is. This is the real science and information as it's being applied. So you're going to go through. Okay, question one, as you read in your own words. That's a typo. Describe the R reproductive strategy. So you're going to read. It's going to explain it a little bit. Can you put it in your own words? What does that look like? And then two, I want you to think about how does the R strategy ensure survival? And so within the reading, again, it's going to talk about like what is the strategy behind the R strategy? What is the goal and how does it achieve that goal? Then you're going to do the same thing with the K strategy. So in your own words, describe the K reproductive strategy and how does the K strategy ensure survival. So you're going to be looking at those two just within this first page. You're going to get quick kind of explanations. Then we have this chart. So I do recommend, made this note here, make sure you understand the differences between K and R reproductive strategies. This list can be very helpful in your notes. So, it's a nice kind of graph here for you and comparing and contrasting really the two and showing how they're different. You could choose to make this a Venn diagram in your notes and see kind of where things overlap and how they're similar. But really, these are pretty defining characteristics that we should be somewhat aware of. And you'll see for the most part, they're almost exact opposites. So as long as you can kind of remember the main ideas and remember their opposites and which ones go where, you should do all right with that. But what I do want, and this will, I foresee being a little bit of a challenge, but I want you to try and graph. So without the numerical data, we're not necessarily doing any calculations, but graph the pattern of population size and survival that you would see in these two strategies. And so to do that, it says that here you would click show your work, and then I've inserted this image here. And so what you're able to do, you can choose your color, you can choose your size, you can do different things. We don't quite need those. I think you just want to scribble, okay? And then as you're doing this, right, you can kind of graph what it's going to look like. And obviously that would not be what it looks like. You can then erase and delete that. Okay, so your K strategist and your R strategist will have a different population size initially, and they will then both achieve some survival by what would be, death, right? The end of the species, if you will. So before the next generation, I should say. So really, they're going to be able to. You're going to be able to look at this chart and basically, what would the population size look like initially, and how would it change over the lifespan of a generation, and then come to its conclusion. So both will end really here at the bottom. Okay, as you get here, we don't need to go way off the chart. But so that's the kind of guidance I want to give you. You can draw on there and fill that in. And of course, you can ask questions and we can talk about that in class. Then, after you've done that, I have a true or false here, but I didn't want to just make it multiple choice, true or false. I want you to explain and see if you can find evidence. So true or false, all organisms can be classified solely as a K or R strategist. Explain your answer and try to find evidence within the text. Really, though, once you get to this paragraph here and this last little page, it is not necessarily related to what we're talking about. As I mentioned, they start going more into biofilm and different microbial and bacterial colonies and so forth. So it's a little bit different than what we're talking about. But I wanted to include it so you could keep reading and you could hear and see what kind of language they're using and the detail of the science that they're using, and kind of get a vision of where does this ecology science go. So that being said, I have a little summary here. So you're looking at number 7. Now that you've read and learned about the two reproductive strategies and their defining characteristics, why might it be important for us to know and understand which strategy, or possibly a combination of strategies, that a species utilizes? Why would that be important for us to know? Or is it important for us to know? You can argue that. Then I have a couple theoreticals for you, and these are actually really important. So please be thoughtful about it. Try to include some of the information that you learned from the article and the characteristics that you picked up from the article. But what do you think? Why are humans case strategists? Okay, so that's one. Can you apply it to us? Do we have an understanding of why we would be like this, and what is it about our societies and our cultures and our lives that this is the most ideal option for us? And then 9, hypothesize. What do you think the world would be like if humans were our strategists? Okay, so what if we're the opposite? So it's some things I wanted you to think about. What would our lifespan look like? And again, look at the chart for the defining characteristics of the two strategies. What might our families look like? Would we have a few siblings? Would we have a few hundred siblings? Think about what would the family look like? Would we even really worry about a family, right? If you have, these different characteristics, would our social and political dynamics, would that look similar? And that kind of ties into how might our daily behaviors be different? Right now we're living on average to, I think it's 65, 75 years is somewhere in the average. And, if we're an R strategist, would that be true? And if it's not true, would that change our perspective? Would that change our goals in life? Okay, so you can be very creative with this, and I really want you to try and apply the characteristics to what your hypothesis is. Okay, that is it for our reproductive strategies and comparing K versus R. Please let me know if you have any questions, and I look forward to seeing you in class.